Baruch Hashem. My name is Mark Lichtenwalter, coming to you live on this 8th day of February 2019. I'm not doing a radio show until later on today, probably around 1 or 2. Looks like I got laid off. My semi-truck is not going to be able to be fixed for a while, so they'll recall me back when things are fixed, but it's like a major break. So the other day I was driving up a hill and my rear ends went out completely, and they're under warranty, but they have to test a bunch of stuff. So I'm on layoff status until further notice. So, which is fine. I'll just do some more videos than I normally do. So we'll be back on later today for the radio show, Fundamentally Mormon, where I will be going over part four of 95 Thesis, but we're going to just take this time to read the Mormon Yeshiva, a blog by Rob K. You can find that at blogspot.com/the Mormon Yeshiva. Now, what is a yeshiva? That is a school, a Jewish school. And this gets into the Hebrew roots of the Book of Mormon, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Excuse me. This particular blog, I believe, was done in December of 2018. So we're just going to read it. It's entitled The Book of Mormon and the Keys to Obtaining the Record of Heaven. So anybody can comment on the live stream. We are broadcasting live on facebook.com/LAZURUS1977. We are also broadcasting live on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/user/God is my compass. The channel name is Messiah Ben Joseph. So, all right, let's just get right into this then. The Book of Mormon and the Keys to Obtaining the Record of Heaven. The receipt of the Ruach Elohim, or the Holy Ghost, or the Ruach HaKodesh, is a gift sought after not only in modern times, but in ancient times as well. The Ruach Elohim is what is known as the record of heaven. The gift of life and transformation given by the Spirit of God was first recorded by Adam. Quote, "Therefore it is given to abide in you the record of heaven, the Comforter, the peaceable things of immortal glory, the truth of all things, that which quickeneth all things, which maketh alive all things, that which knoweth all things, and hath all power according to wisdom, mercy, truth, justice, and judgment." End quote. The Book of Moses, chapter 6, verse 61. The concept of the record of heaven filtered down through the various cultures by other names such as the Ruach Elohim, the Ruach HaKodesh, or it's actually Ruach HaKodesh, the Akashic records, the the vault of the gods, the book of life, and many others. Encoded in the first journey of Nephi and his brethren to retrieve the plates of Laban ha Eloi, celestial whiteness, purity. I don't know what that is. I wish Rob would do these, but he's the one that puts them together for us, for everybody. So anyway, I just like reading them. So, or the Record of the Jews is a guide book to obtaining this record of heaven, like the ancients. The journey to obtain the record, the journey of the sons of Lehi, represent submission and subduing of the natural or carnal man, wherein one can breach the wall or barrier that separates us from the celestial treasury that contains the record of heaven. Laban represents our adversary, or a mighty one, the epitome of ego and the source of the carnal in the world, who stands between us and the record, attempts to secure our connection with heaven through carnal egotistical, and idolatrous means only succeed in getting us thrust out by this mighty adversary. Nephi, who represents the spiritual child of God, goes into his place of correction, the cavity of a rock, where the natural man is divided from the spiritual man. In true childlike humility, trust, and submission, he goes forward, not knowing what to do, but trusting that God has the ability to reduce his adversary and source of the carnal man to powerlessness, wherein he then is given instruction by two witnesses, the voice of the Spirit in unity with the law or Torah of God or of Jehovah. In obedience to the instruction given by the voice of these two witnesses, he succeeds in cutting off the authority, wisdom, and understanding of his adversary. In doing so, he can assume the condition and status of a celestial being or mighty one to pass by the servants who guard the celestial treasury, symbolized by the servant Zoram, who guards the treasury in Jerusalem to obtain the record of heaven. The celestial treasury representing the source of all human spirits, even the dwelling place of God, and the record of heaven, representing the connecting spirit of God that comes with all the knowledge and power to manifest the power of God according to wisdom, mercy, truth, justice, and judgment. The testimony and the law. And I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things which I should do. 1 Nephi chapter 4, verse 6. In their previous attempts to gain the records, the sons of Nephi attempted, actually, that should be the sons of Lehi, attempted to approach their adversary and obtain the records after the manner of the natural or carnal man. Their request, based on pedigree, was met with expulsion. Their attempts to purchase the records through the self-righteousness of their idols, riches, status, and other precious things was also met with their expulsion and failure to obtain the record. The voice of the Spirit. This time, Nephi, having separated himself from the natural or carnal man, begins his ascent as a child of God who approaches his adversary like King David, a man after God's own heart. Trusting, selfless, seeking not his own, not being puffed up in self, he approaches his adversary with the heart of a child filled with the Zedekah, charity of C. Moroni 745. With his heart of altruism, his means not upon his own understanding, but on the voice of the Spirit, being led step by God's own voice, not knowing beforehand what he was going to do, but walking in trusting obedience to God's instruction to go up and obtain the record. Quote, nevertheless, I went forth, and as I came near unto the house of Laban, I beheld a man, and he had fallen to the earth before me, for he was drunken with wine. And when I came to him, I found that it was Laban, and I beheld his sword, and I drew it forth from the sheath thereof. And the hilt thereof was of pure gold, and the workmanship thereof was exceedingly fine. And I saw that the blade thereof was of the most precious steel. And it came to pass that I was constrained by the Spirit that I should kill Laban. But I said in my heart, never at any time have I shed the blood of man. And I shrunk and would that I might not slay him. 1 Nephi chapter 4, verses 7 through 10. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold today. So, according to the Torah of Jehovah, Laban was guilty of attempted murder and theft. which carried the death penalty. So if Jehovah instructed Nephi to carry out the death penalty on Laban, that was God's prerogative for that to happen. Nephi acted as a judge, and in the book of Lehi, we see that that Nephi stripped him of his clothing and placed his clothing upon himself, and then he took the sword and he lopped off Laban's head. So anyway, but it's also interesting too that Zoram himself was a Levite, which would be necessary for things in the future. But anyway, continuing on. Nephi, as a child of God, did not declare war upon his adversary, nor did he enter the city with an intent to take Laban's life. He has been illustrated. Our adversary is mighty and formidable. In and of ourselves, we have no power to defeat him. It is God who delivers the adversary into the hands of the spiritual child, with the adversary being rendered powerless, symbolized by his falling to the earth drunk. Nephi explains that when he found his adversary, he was drunken with wine. Wine represents the light of wisdom, or the choma. I don't think I'm saying that right. Chokmah. I think that's chokmah. Anyway, for a spiritual child of God, vessel prepared to receive the wine becomes the light to the soul. For the carnal and the natural man, the light of wisdom reduces him to the level of an animal. The more light given to the natural or carnal man, the more animalistic he or she becomes. The more light given to the child of God, the more pure and refined he or she becomes. The blade of the sword represents the power to correct the disconnection and disharmony between God and man. The hilt of the sword, being forged of pure gold symbolizes the power to change, the pure ego, natural man, into its opposite, or spiritual child of God. The voice of the Spirit compelled Nephi to a course of action that would cause him to slay his adversary. His first and natural response was to shrink back, the law, or the Torah. Quote, "And the Spirit said unto me again, Behold, Jehovah, or the Lord, hath delivered him unto thine hands. Yea, and I also knew that he had sought to take away mine own life. Yea, and he would not hearken unto the commandments of the Lord. And he also had taken away our property. And it came to pass that the Spirit said unto me again, Slay him, for the Lord hath delivered him unto thine hands. Behold, the Lord slayeth the wicked, to bring forth his righteous purposes. It is better that one man should perish than a nation should dwindle and perish in unbelief. And now when I, Nephi, had heard these words, I remembered the words of the Lord, which he spake unto me in the wilderness, saying that inasmuch as thy seed shall keep my commandments, they shall prosper in the land of promise." End quote. 1 Nephi chapter 4, verses 12 through 14. Despite what many think, Nephi was not commanded to commit premeditated murder. His act was based upon the laws of the Goal, or Hadam, the avenger of blood. It's all part of Torah, and Laban was guilty of capital crimes. So this established by the voice of the Spirit, evoking the law of God in Exodus chapter 21, verses 12 through 13, quote, "He that smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death. And if a man lie not in wait, but God deliver him unto his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he shall flee." In the ancient mind, Nephi is rising to the level of wisdom. In witnessing Laban fall into the earth before him, Nephi has reached the place of complete awareness of what is happening inside of him. His obedience to the voice of the Spirit is not done in a vacuum. He slays his adversary, a symbol of the natural man and ego, by making his decision on the basis of the voice of the Spirit and God's law. In the mind of an Israelite, the law of God represents the physical manifestation of the character and attributes of God in this physical world. It is through the law of God that operates in the physical world that the voice of the Spirit is given physical manifestation in the world in which we live. The manner of destroying the natural man comes through the action of the two witnesses, the voice of the Spirit and the law. This is the higher meaning of the scripture. To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20. As we make our ascent from the carnal to the spiritual child of God, there are many influences that can lead us down paths far from our destination of the promised land. Yea, and I also thought that they could not keep the commandments of the Lord according to the law of Moses, save they should have the law. And I also knew that the law was engraved upon the plates of brass. And again, I knew that the Lord had delivered Laban unto mine hands for this cause, that I might obtain the record according to his commandments. Therefore I did obey the voice of the Spirit, and took Laban by the hair of the head, and smote off his head with his own sword. 1 Nephi chapter 4, verse 15 through 18. In the mouth of two or more witnesses, all things are established. In the case of the ascension, it is no different. The Spirit testifies according to the commandments, and the commandments of God's law give the instructions from the Spirit's physical manifestation in this world. Remember, the plates of brass on this level of interpretation represent the record of heaven. The commandments of God according to his law are engraved upon the record of heaven, so that light and structure come together in functional oneness. It is God's commandment that we receive the record of heaven, and it is thus obtained by heeding the voice of the Spirit in unity with God's law, one testifying of the other. In cutting off the head of Laban, who represents an adversary and also the epitome of one in their fallen animalistic condition, Nephi cuts off the head and ruling triad of his adversary's power, his crown, authority, or kether, his wisdom, the chachma, and his understanding, the bina. Quote, and after I had smitten off his head with his own sword, I took the garments of Laban and put them upon mine own body, yea, even every whit, and I did gird his armor about my loins. And after I had done this, I went forth into the treasury of Laban. And as I went forth towards the treasury of Laban, behold, I saw the servant of Laban, who had the keys of the treasury, and I commanded him in the voice of Laban that he should go with me into the treasury. And he supposed me to be his master Laban, for he beheld the garments and also the sword girded about my loins. And he spake unto me concerning the elders of the Jews, and knowing that his master Laban had been out by night among them, and I spake unto him as if I had been Laban. 1 Nephi chapter 4, verse 19 through 20. In the book of Lehi, we find that Nephi stripped him of his clothes before he smote off his head, and then he placed his clothes upon him. Just a little bit of clarification there. We get a lot more detail about things in the book of Lehi. Unfortunately, the church doesn't have that book today, but I do. So anyway, let's see here. After slaying his adversary, Nephi transforms himself by taking on the garments and armor of Laban. Donning the garments of superior authority, wisdom, and understanding, Nephi symbolically transforms into a being of supernal or celestial whiteness, a new being. In his new identity, he is able to access the treasury of Laban, the celestial treasury, or Otzor in Hebrew, refers to the source of every human soul. In his new identity, he is able to pass by the servant who holds the keys of this treasury. Obtaining the record of heaven from the celestial treasury symbolizes our connection and lifeline to God as, quote, it is given to abide in you, the record of heaven, the comforter, the peaceable things of immortal glory, the truth of all things, that which quickeneth all things, which maketh all things alive, all things, that which knoweth all things, and hath all power according to wisdom, mercy, truth, justice, and judgment. And now behold, I say unto you, this is the plan of salvation unto all men, through the blood of mine only begotten, who shall come in the meridian of time, end quote. According to the teachings of the fathers, every human soul is part of God, like children to their father. Part of our journey in returning to God is to effect what is called the tikkun, or the restoration of God. Having subdued the carnal nature and being transformed, he is able to assume a new identity in garments and power, the sword. He is able to pass by the servant as if he were a mighty or heavenly being who has a right to the record of heaven. Having obtained the record of heaven, they are then prepared to go down into the wilderness of their father's tent or tabernacle. Or tabernacle of dwelling. So, and we talked about the tabernacle of dwelling yesterday on actually, I guess it would have been Wednesday. So yesterday I got up real early and I helped my wife get ready for her job, and then I got the kids ready for school, and then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to take my daughter to the library for reading time at 10:30, and I set my alarm clock and I laid down to watch something with her, and I was in and out of it. I was sleeping on and off while she was watching her cartoons. I was on the couch. Anyway, I was just tired yesterday. That's why I didn't do a program. So anyway, but I'm going to do one later on today. Like I said, we're going to continue continue reading, what's it called? 95 Thesis. And I'm going to, Rob is watching now. Rob, I just got done reading one of your blogs. I noticed that you haven't posted any in on the blog spot since January 9th, but I noticed that you've posted things in the groups. So I'd like well, I'll talk to you later about it. Anyway, but so I'm going to continue reading these, and I think that they're really interesting and that we can learn a lot from them. And if anybody wants to read these and do videos, I would love to listen to them, because there's so many things that I want to go through, but it'd be cool if other people would also read these things. I mean, Pure Mormonism by Alan Rock Waterman, that he's got a really excellent blog. And, that would be great if people could read that one. I mean, I do read the Ogden Kraut stuff, and I've been doing that for years now, and I'm happy to be able to do that. But it would be cool if other people could do this too, read and post these things, and they're all welcome in my groups, even if I don't agree with them always. I really enjoy reading them and listening to other people read them. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for watching. And I'm probably going to come back on in just a little bit. I still have 30 minutes before I have to go pick up my still have 30 minutes before I have to go pick up my daughter. So I'm going to take a look and see if I can find another one that would be interesting to read. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. Goodbye.